Let's learn.
Yeah.
Kum lernen in Ablat Gemara. Today's daf is daf Kuf Tes Amar Aleph. We'll begin the Mishnah daf Kuf Ches Amar Beis on the bottom. Says the Mishnah, Hamagaresh Ese Isha. Somebody, Reuven divorces his wife, and then Vehechazira, he takes it back, which you're allowed to. Now, when Reuven divorced his wife, none of his brothers were able to marry Reuven's wife because it's their brother's divorcee. But then Reuven himself took her back. And the question is, and then Reuven passes away childless. Do the brothers, the question is the brothers now. In the first, initially there was an Issa for them to marry her because it was the brother's divorced wife. But the second time around, now he died, it's his full-fledged wife. So does the Issa that was there before remain? Or now we look at it as it is now. Now it's the mitzvah of Yibum, and now she's a full-fledged wife, so they do have a mitzvah. We'll have a machlekes. You're allowed to be miyabim, and we don't say that the first marriage ruined it all and fafam. You don't say that at all. You look at it now. However, Rabbi Lezer forbids it, and the Gemara will say it's because of a gzera, as we'll see in a minute. Likewise, hamegadish as hayisayim, you divorced, let's say, a young girl that got married, and she was married off by her mother or by her brothers. In other words, she was only married midrabban, let's say, to Reuven, and then Reuven divorced her. Now we're talking about a ktana, and then Reuven took her back. So the first marriage and divorce was Rabbanon, and then he took her back, and now she is married Mahatayda. She's now older. He either took her back when she was young, but now they live together, so that now that she's full-fledged married Mahatayda, she's a mitzvah yibum. And Rabbi Lezer asks even in that case, because the first marriage ended up in divorce, which made her asa to all the brothers, and that issa remains in play. And why would that be? You have a mitzvah yibum Mahatayda, and that marriage and divorce is only with Rabbanon, again because of the zeh that we'll see in a minute. And the Gzera because of the following case. Tana, a young girl, Shehisiya via her father married off, and his gash. A young girl got married, Mahatera, and then she was divorced. The father loses his rights over her. I told you yesterday, a few days ago, the machlek is whether he loses it completely or he only lost his rights, Mahatera, but he's no worse than siblings and mother that he can marry with a rabban. But the bottom line is she is a divorcee, Mahatera. Then when the Reuven took her back, now the second time around is only with the Rabbanim, and then he died. Since Mahatayra, she's a divorcee, none of the brothers can marry her. With the Rabbanim, there's a mitzvah of Yibum now, let's say, but the Rabbanim cannot take away the Issa that's there from the Torah, because her second marriage to her husband is only with the Rabbanim because her father no longer has the right, and therefore, should mitzvah of Yibum is only with the Rabbanim, but facing that, or confronting that is an issa of the Torah. Everyone holds asur liyab, and that's what Rabbi Lezer holds. Because of this din, we're going to be gazing on all those other cases, which the din should be that they could marry, but because of the gzeda. As Gemara will explain. Amar Eva says, Eva, my time at Rabbi Lezer, what's his for? So first thing Gemara thought, because the first time around when she was divorced, already was asur to the brothers, that issa remains. That's the part because the Issa remains. So how come the din is that she needs a chalitza? If the Issa remains that she's not allowed to marry any of the brothers-in-law, then she shouldn't even require chalitza. Maybe you're right. Who said you need chalitza? The Mishnah doesn't mention a word about chalitza. No, because what Tanya let the Braisim Shel Rav Elazar, said name Rav Elazar, that she still needs chalitza. So it can't be the reason is because the Issa that was there as a divorcee remains. Elam Eifa. My time. No, what? We don't know. I give up. No idea what his logic is. I'm going to buy Abayis. I'll tell you what I think the logic is. So Abayis says, "Hi, the time Rabbi Elazar. This is what Rabbi Elazar misapkele. Rabbi Elazar did not know. He meets him at Rabbi Elazar himself. Why did he insist on chalitza? The denies or yibum because he wasn't sure if the issa of the divorce, being a divorced wife from the first marriage, lingers on, and therefore she cannot marry the brothers, a putter from everything. Or no, you look at it now, and now she's a full-fledged wife, and there's a mitzvah. So you know what? Chalitza with no yibum. He's not sure. He meets him at Pella. Is it now? It happens now, or it happens when as soon as they got married, and the issa was already there because she's a divorcee for found. And therefore, or imitim apellas, haramya kamela yibum, and the chiluk as follows: if it happens now, then she has a mitzvah yibum. If it's the first marriage that causes everything to happen, then that's after the first marriage, which was terminated by a get, she was also to the brothers-in-law, and therefore, because of the suffix, chalitza no yibum. That's Abaye's understanding of Rabbi Elazar's opinion. Coming along, Rabbi says, I'll give you a different understanding. There's no question that he holds that now is a mitzvah yibum. So if now is the mitzvah yibum, how can a Belazar does not allow her to marry her brother-in-law? Everyone was aware that she was divorced. The ein hakol b'kiyim b'chazon. Everyone was aware that she got remarried, and therefore, if they see her marry the brother-in-law, they're going to wonder. They're going to wonder what's going on here. How could she live with the brother-in-law? She's a divorcee. So the Gemara says, for some reason or another, according to Rava, everyone knows about divorce, but not everyone knows about marriage. Everyone knows that she was remarried. Even the Yosef, everyone sees that she comes out of his house. I would say they're living together again. And of course, tongues wag, and they are going to say that she's remarried. So what's the problem? Islay Kola. So he answered back, Me Loyaskina, why can't we say that it's talking about, Me Loyaskina doesn't mean definitely we're talking about this case, but why can't I say that the Mishnah is talking about a very weird case, and that is the Hadad. Everyone knew she was divorced. Then one night, middle of the night, he took her back, and 3 hours later he died. So no one knows that she got remarried, and therefore that's what we're worried about. A bit far-fetched, but that's what we're worried about. It's like Boyaz and Rus, because it says that night they had relations, and in the morning he passed away. Comes along Rav Ashi. Now we have this very often. Abai and Rava have an argument. Pshat the Gemara comes to Rav Ashi and sorts it out. Now Rav Ashi was only born when Rava, according to Rashi and Gittin, when Rava passed away. Not like the Rambam was said Rav Ashi learned from Rava, but Rav Ashi was born when Rava passed away, and then it's possible that Rav Ashi was involved in this discussion. This is many years later. Rav Ashi says, I'll tell you the reason of Belazar, like I just told you before about the Gzeda. At the time of Belazar, the Gaza, he was worried about the last case in the Mishnah. Hani, these two cases are the first two cases in the Mishnah where, is divorced, and the second marriage is just as strong. They're both Mahatayro, they're both in the Rabbanon. That the Gaza was going to Hani Mishum Yisayim B'Chaya, because the last case in the Mishnah, which is if she was a Yisayim B'Chaya, so she was divorced Mahatayro, the second marriage was only with the Rabbanon. And the mitzvah given to Rabbanon cannot take away the Isa of the Torah being your brother's divorced wife. And that makes sense. But Tanya say for the very last case, the Mishnah brings us up Ketana Shisiavia, a case where a young girl was married by a father, but his guy got divorced, so she had to get Mahat Torah. And then she's considered Kiyasayim B'Chayim. Even the father's continuing to live, she's considered an orphan, and if she went back to her husband. Now the second marriage is only Midrabbanon, so therefore everyone holds in that case since the mitzvah given on Rabbanon. You cannot proceed with it. Now why do I need a Mishnah to tell me that? This halacha is quite obvious, just to get through. It's obvious. Since the father no longer has any rights over her and she's a young girl, she's only married with Rabbanon. And she's considered a divorcee. Your brother's divorcee. So what's this chiddush? Isn't the Mishnah trying to tell you that time with the Rabbi Lazar? This is the very basis of Rabbi Lazar's gzeda, the gozar hanach b'shum hay. That the first two cases of the Mishnah is forbidden. You know why? Because of this case. The good proof. Actually, the Rashi made in the following case. In the young girl, the father married her off, and his guy was divorced. So she's divorcee. She's considered an orphan in the life of her father. If the husband remarried her, so therefore is only married that she cannot allow to marry her brother-in-law. All we recognize is that she's a divorced woman. The ain't chazar, what about a second marriage? Ma'atayda is not considered. What he wanted to say, Shigirsha, Kishihiktana. This all said they divorced her. Kishihiktana. This is talking. So when she gives her, he divorced her when she was young. The hechzira kishiktana, and he took her back when she was young. So the second marriage is only midrabanan. If he divorced her when she was young, and then a few years later she's now an adult, and he convinced her to come back, this marriage now is mahatayda. So now she got married, is mahatayda. So therefore, if the husband dies, it's yiba mahatayda. Or he took it back to Tana the Godla Etzloi, or not either he married her when she became adult, or he married her when she was still a youngster, but she remained with him even after she became adult. The Mason died. Then Rabban hold well. We look at it now she's a full-fledged marriage Mahatayra. And it doesn't matter if she's divorced before Mahatayra, she's a full-fledged wife, and therefore there's a mitzvah yibum. However, again, Rabbi Lazar's geyser, in case he took her back when she was young and she's still young when he passed away. So therefore, he says chalitza without yibum. Question. Let's say he took her back when she was an adult, according to Rabbi Lazar. we have a gzeda that she cannot marry only chalitza. What about a co-wife? So Ratza Mao, what about the co-wife? According to Rabbi Loza, that since the first one is considered a grusha, your brother's divorced wife, and therefore it's not a gzeda. None of the brothers can marry her. What about the co-wife? Amalei, so the Amalei said he goof exeda. The only reason why she cannot marry her brother is only exeda midrabanan, because she should be able to marry. If I'm not naked of an exeda, in the first two cases, the mission, the whole thing is midrabanan, because next time she was a youngster, then father, then he got divorced, and so on. The whole thing is on midrabanan exeda because of that, and we want to then asa the tzara as well. Is exeda. Says the Gemara, Tanya didn't believe the Brayso brother Amru he vitzayrasa chayletzes. It sounds like that the co-wife also is bound by this very same Gzeda. So the Gemara says, he vitzarasa salkadatach. What do you mean? It sounds like, if you could take the Brayso literally, it sounds like she and her co-wife both receive chalitza. No such thing. Only one of the two wives needs chalitza or yibam, and that's it. The other one automatically is exonerated. Elav oihi oitzarasa chayletzes. So the Gemara's question is, either she or the tzara, they receive chalitza. Now, why is exeda? What it says back. Once lav terutzika metaratzta, the moment you have to edit the brayse, then I'll edit it differently. This I shall read the brayse. He chalitza, she's limited only to chalitza. Tarasa oy chalitza oy misyabem. The tzara has a choice. Says the Gemara. Shnei achin, next mission. Shnei achin nisugin l'shtei achay tanas. She had Reuben and Shimon, both of them were married to two young girls. And let's say Reuben's husband died. So, but the two sisters, Leah and Rachel, married Reuben and Shimon. Now, of course, if Reuben dies, Shimon cannot marry Reuben's wife because it's his wife's sister. So therefore, there's no yibum nothing. So Reuben's wife is exonerated. The same applies to two people definitely down. They're only married with the Rabbanan, and the two sisters married two brothers. Again, the brother who died childless, she's free. But here's the situation. Gedolah v'Ktana. Reuben married a Gedolah, Leah, who was an adult, so he was married Mahatayre. And now if Reuben dies, there's a mitzvah yibum on the brothers. Shimon is married to her sister Midrabanan, and she can always just walk out by doing meal. So the question is, what happens in this case here? So it depends who died. Let's say Shimon, who's married to Rachel, a younger woman, he died. So now Reuben is married to Rachel's sister Leah, so Rachel goes free. She cannot go to Reuben because it's a wife, it's his sister's husband. But what about Reuben died. So Shimon has a mitzvah to marry Reuben's wife. But the problem is with the Rabbanan, he's married to Shimon, to Leah's sister Rachel. What happens in this case? Rabbi says, we coax this girl, Shimon, his wife, to walk out so that Shimon and Leah can get married and fulfill a mitzvah of the Torah of Yibum. That's what he says. However, Rabbi Gamliel says, we don't coax anybody to do min. As we'll see later, it's not a good idea. We don't like people doing min. But he says, if she did min, fine. But if not, Shimon can still remain married to his wife. The question is another variable there. Can Shimon remain married to his wife because it's the sister of his Zika? Mahatayda, he's bound to Leah because of the mitzvah of Zika, and now he's he's living with Leah's sister Rachel. So he holds there's no Zika, and therefore he doesn't have to divorce his own wife, a sister of a Zika, because he doesn't believe in Zika. Remember, he had a big machlekes if Zika exists, it doesn't exist. So he says, if not, wait until Rachel becomes an adult. So now Shimon will be married to Rachel Mahatayda, and then Reuven's wife is free to go because it's a sister's husband. Rabbi Yeshua says, Oiloi, woe is, both of them get hurt over here. Oiloi alishte, woe is to Shimon's wife, and Oiloi al Eishazacher, woe is to Reuben's wife. Why? He cannot live beget. He cannot live with his wife Rachel because she is the sister of a Zika, and he does believe in Zika, so the sister of Zika. And so why don't you just tell her to do miyun? Because we don't encourage miyun, as we've seen in the Gemara. And because he believes in Zika, she cannot remain married to Shimon because she's a sister of the Zika. On the other hand, the H is Achi b'chalitza. but she can no longer, nor can Reuven's wife Leah marry him, because since Shimon gave a divorce to Rachel, so you're not allowed to marry your divorced sister's husband, and therefore Shimon cannot marry his divorced wife's sister. So therefore they cannot marry, but they do chalitza. Why chalitza? Because only their whole divorce is the Rabban. Says the Gemara, Mishari, how can you encourage a girl, according to the first opinion, to go in Rabbi Lezer, to do Mia, and a person should follow three things, and this is one of the following things. He should do chalitza, three things. That chalitza is preferred option over yibum. Number two, havar shalom, bring peace into people's lives. And number three, vafaras adorim, cancel the whole idea of neder. And goes as follows. I'll explain each one. And the following, those are three good things that one you should annul all your nedarim. And three bad things are min amin, don't encourage min hapigoinas, don't encourage taking pecadnas and watching for people as soon see, and don't become a guarantor of people's loans. And the Gemara explains, before we get to explanation, me and the mitzvah shiny, right? We don't generally encourage me. But over here, the reason why Rabbi Lezer says we encourage Shimon to his wife, to be Mamayan, so in order for Reuven's wife, Leah, to be able to fulfill a mitzvah of Yibum. So for a mitzvah's sake, we will do it. Now, what's going on here? What's the first chalitza? Could we follow Abba Shaul, who says, the Tanya Abba Shaul es yevemta. We learned it before. Abba Shaul says, if somebody marries his sister, l'shem like, who's a beautiful woman, l'shem ishus, Pasha wants to get married, any other Tiri motive is Kilo Pagay. You're marrying a sister-in-law. If you don't marry L'Shem Shemayim, then it's as if you are living with a sister-in-law, which is outrageous. The Korah Be'enai Liyas Havlad Mamzer. In theory, your child is almost like a mamzer. So therefore, we encourage chalitza. Number two, about shalom, bring peace. See what it says. Bakei shalom. You should search for shalom. It says after it. Rabbi said, Asya redifa, the reward that you get will make a shalom from Bakei shalom v'redfeyu to another redifa ksiva. Here it says Bakei shalom v'redfeyu. It tells elsewhere in Mishlem says Reidiv tzedakah v'chesed. If you chase after tzedakah and charity and goodness, yimatzei chayim tzedakah v'chavod, you'll find all these wonderful things, life and tzedakah and kavod, and therefore chasing after shalom is a wonderful thing, and you get a schar in olam haza and in olam haba. What do you call it? Kavod is in olam haza, and the chayim and all that is in olam haba, and tzedakah is in olam haba. As far as Nadorim, like Ramnos Tanya, we look more in Dorim, if somebody makes a nedit, if somebody makes a nedit, it's as if you build during the times of Beis Hamikdash a bama in your backyard, which is forbidden to have a bama. And we learn that because it says in the pasuk, if you stop and you avoid making the Dorim. And then it says, this is how Taisa learns. And then it says, "Chilu lochem mina adam asher neshama b'hadin brachas," that you should eat before davening, because it says, "Chilu lochem," you should avoid from the person that the neshama is in his nose, and we say before davening, the neshama is still in your nose, and it says, "Bameh nechshav," and we darshan al tikra bameh el abama. So we find the word "Chilu lochem mina adam," and it says there bameh obama. So we make a shava by neder. It says you should avoid it. What? It's as if you're building a bama. Furthermore, if you continue with that neder, you're not mat that you don't unravel your neder, annul your neder. It's ki'ilu hikriv oleha. You did two of them. You built a bama and you broke a bonus on it, which is terrible. We don't want you to make vows. You want to do something, except when it comes to do a mitzvah, you want to encourage them to do a mitzvah. The Yisrachim, which was the word, you should distance these are three things. Why taka? Because Dilma, perhaps, Godla, what happens? She grows up and she's adult, and she has regrets why she left her first husband, and we're worried that maybe the first husband then will encourage her to come back to him because they lived together, and she was young, she's mature, and now she grew up to be a nice girl, and it'll cause strife in her second marriage. Therefore, we don't like miyunin. We don't encourage miyunin because maybe we'll have regrets later on. What's the pigadon? Talking about somebody you really know well, somebody you're very intimate with, and you know really, really well. You shouldn't really have their pigadon in your house because either mistakes or the guy's a swindler. Things can happen to go awry. For example, the dummy. People, the locals in the house, your house is like his house. They walk in freely into your house, and what happens? He walks in, he sees his pigadon, takes it back, and a week later he comes to you. Where's my object? You didn't even notice him taking it. Min Haravin, what do you mean you shouldn't get involved in being a guarantor on people's loans? We're talking about Arve Shaltzian in a place called Rasha Tupshatim, but in a place called Shaltzian over there, they had a custom that if somebody borrowed money as a guarantor, they would go directly to the guarantor. The law is first you go to the borrower. If you can't pay, then you go to the guarantor. It's the last resort. They would go as a first resort to the guarantor because usually the guarantor had money. Let the guarantor fight it out with the borrower. Don't read it says there's a pasuk that says Ra'a Yeroa, bad and follows bad, ki orev zor, because the stranger became a guarantor. And the Soine, and we'll see soon, take him I'll come back to it soon. Ra achara tovei, and where it says one bad thing after another bad thing will come, the mekavle gadim. First of all, to those who accept, we said out of zor, those who take responsibility for gerim. What's wrong with gerim? So Rashi says, I'll see in a minute. Will the arve shaltzin, and those who become guarantors shaltzin, will the tekeya atva, the pasuk ends off with soine toikim betech. We hate those who set themselves down, who are secure. And what does that mean? What do we hate? The toikeya atva halacha, people who set themselves down for halacha. What does that mean? We'll see in a minute. Mekabel gadim. What's wrong with those who accept gadim, encourage gadim, like chelbud? We're talking about it here. Encourage people who had no interest in becoming a gayer and convince them why to become Jewish. That's not a good thing. That gadim are difficult to eat, like this leprosy. What do you mean? Because if they have some of their old habits, and we will learn from them. So therefore, we're talking about where we encourage them. Taisha brings, we find many cases where Hill took, those people that teaching the whole Torah on 1 foot and other things, instances, and he took him as a ger because he definitely knew, first of all, they came to him, and he also definitely knew that they were genuine, and therefore he accepted them in. In fact, Taisha brings out the Gemara where it says that Abraham, Klal Yisrael was punished because Simna wanted to become Jewish, convert. They didn't accept her, so she ended up marrying Eliphaz, and they gave birth to Amalek, and the rest of history, we are suffering from that. So if somebody wants to come forward, definitely you should take them. So what it means over here is two things. Either we encourage them to become a ger. They're not really interested, and we push it, and that's not a good thing at all. And the second thing is that we accept them straight away without getting them to study, without teasing out of them whether they're genuine or not genuine, to make it a little bit harder for them, so they have to really mean it if they want it. And if we don't we make it easy, that isn't a good thing either. Taking a little further, Arbe Shaltzian, what's that all about? The Avdi Sholov Dutz, they follow the pattern of Sholov Dutz, which means basically that they follow that you go straight to the Arav. They take away the normal rules that you go to the borrower, they go straight directly to the guarantor. What's this Tekeya Atzma Halacha? He pitches himself in, therefore halacha. So Gemara says very interesting. Anybody says, I don't want to learn Torah, then ain't learn Torah. Then he doesn't have any Torah. He doesn't have reward of Torah. So isn't that obvious? If he said, look, the only thing I'm going to do is I am going to learn Torah, but I'm not going to do any mitzvahs. Then then all this char he gets is for learning Torah, not for mitzvahs. He learned Torah, he gets schar for that. Every mitzvah is a disparate mitzvah. Because you don't do another one doesn't mean you don't get schar for the one you did. No. If you learn Torah and you don't follow the mitzvahs, you don't get the schar for Torah either. My time of why takanat. I'm going to pop on across the pasuk. It says you should learn and you should do. When do we say that you get schar for learning if you follow through with the mitzvahs? But if you don't follow through with the mitzvahs, then you don't get schar for Torah either. It's one way of learning. The way you said before, a person says, I don't have only Torah, he gets only schar for Torah. No, you ask the question, what's a chiddush? If I said I'll learn Torah, all I'll do is learn Torah, and he gets schar for Torah. What's a chiddush? It's a chiddush. You learning Torah, and you love learning, and you teach others. So we would have thought, and the others will be, and the others who learn Torah from you, they do the mitzvahs. You're a teacher in the frum school, and you teach them all about the mitzvahs, but you personally go home, you don't do any of the mitzvahs. So you would have thought, not only do I get schar for learning, perhaps I should get schar for all the mitzvahs that they do. We say no. Normally we say yes, because you're a catalyst for their doing the mitzvahs. Not in this case. Ma'od, I would have thought easily, agla the day, he should get some kind of schar. What do you call it? Kamash Malon tells you, not in this case. Not in this case. What do you call it? So, not in this case. In this case, you don't get the schar from other people, and that's the chiddush over here. That because you yourself are not being mekayim any of the mitzvahs, you don't get the schar from other mitzvahs. Even though we normally say that if you teach, if you're mezakas rabbi, it's like you're machtas rabbi, a terrible thing. If you're mezakas rabbi, that nobody will sin on account of you. Why? Because we don't want the Rebbe to be in Gehenim and the Talmud to be in Gan Eden. So over here, how can it be that these Talmidim are all going to go to Gan Eden because they're learning Torah and they're doing mitzvahs, and the Rebbe is in Gehenim? So therefore, what Taisa says here, that's talking about that this person was not doing mitzvahs before he started teaching them, and because he was not doing mitzvahs before he started teaching them, then he was a Rosh already. Therefore, he doesn't get the schar of Talmidim. But if he was good till he started teaching them, then we believe the Torah itself will make sure that he continues doing mitzvahs himself, and he will get schar. And that's why Elisha ben Avu, the problem with Elisha ben Avu was that he was continuing teaching on Meir, but he was bad before he started teaching on Meir, because as the Gemara in Chagiga, he had music, philosophy books, and so on. And because he followed all that, he was really bad before even he started. Anyway, so he went further. He boys have another way of learning. But what's the terrible thing here? I'm talking about dying a judge. That he once had a psak din and he had to look it up. He did his homework, and yes, he was very thorough. And then he has another case which is similar, not exactly the same, but similar enough. He decided to just draw an analogy. I have to look it up again because I remember something similar. The East Lake Rabba, he has a teacher there. He has greater dayanim he could consult with. He was so arrogant, he decided not to ask, and he passed him without even bothering to look up. Every dayan has to imagine that there's a sword there between his thighs. The Gehenim door is open right in front of him, and he should take his halacha seriously. It says in the bed around Shleima, Shishim Gibaydim Savila, the 60 Gibaydim surrounding it, Megibadi Israel from the heroes, the Yidden, and Mipacha Balelis, and they were frightened of the night. It says in the passage that each one had a sword by his thigh. They all had swords, they were all scared of Gehenim, and therefore they took it seriously. Where does the number 60 come from? Rashi says these Gebayrim were in the Lishchas Haggadah the Sanhedrin. Faces asks, what do you mean? It was 70, it was 71. How many Dayanim there were? Where does 60 come from? And he remains with a question, and therefore he learns that Shishi means a 600,000 Yidden. That they represented the 600,000 Yidden. So you further, Rabbi says, Gamliel says, if she's Remayan, fine, fair enough. If she wasn't Remayan, we don't encourage me whatsoever, but he doesn't believe in Zika, therefore he can remain married to his wife. Shimon can remain married to the younger wife, but you have to wait till he becomes an adult, and then Reuben's wife goes scot-free. Shows the Gemara, Rabbi asked Rav an interesting question. My timer, the Rabbi Gamliel, what is the possible reason he says once she becomes an adult, so then Reuben's wife is free? What's the story of Gamliel? Is it Mishum that somebody holds Kedushay Kitana Mitlitoli? Is it he holds that when a 9-year-old girl gets married, the marriage is sort of in suspense? We don't know how it's going to unfold. The Chigodla, when she becomes bas mitzvah and she's still there, then godly bahado, then because bas mitzvah, the marriage continues and becomes a full-fledged marriage. Even though they had no relations whatsoever. And Rashi says an amazing thing. And Taisa in the Shem will have a problem with Rashi. The Shem will have a problem with Rashi. Rashi says, then it turns out to be that if at the age of 12 she remained, then the Kedushin that she received at 9 turned out to be a full Kedushin, and she was married retrospectively. And everyone, it's an unbelievable Chiddush. But according to Rashi, so the Gemara is that at the age that at 9 years old you got married by your siblings, whatever it is, it's an abundant till you're 12. But if you continued on at 12, even there's no biyah, just the fact you continued on, then retrospectively your Kedushin of 9 was Ma'at Torah. So if somebody lived with her in sin, didn't Nisa Rabbanon, she remained on, suddenly retrospectively became Nisa Raisa, came an Ish, and so on. You cannot punish her because it was Asra Suffolk. We didn't know how it would turn out. But according to the opinion, for example, Asra Suffolk Shmos Asra, according to one holds that Asra Suffolk Shmos Asra comes out of it with a 10-year-old married girl, and then 2 years from now we find out that she's actually staying on. According to Rashi, with Chayr would seem he committed the adultery Mahatayra, and you be chayiv misa both of them. Very odd. Any other Shem say that's not shot at all. They learn comes the age of 12, she remains on. Now it turns into Mahatera. Ideally, perhaps maybe, or has them shot altogether. Really, the Kedushin at 9 years old is not only Midrabah. It's not Kedushin at all. And what is it about 12 years old? If he holds, because 12 years old you had relations, and it's the relation that you had with your husband at the age of 12 that now turned it into a marriage, and that's why Reuben's wife now is set free. If you marry, and furthermore, if you tell me what happened at the age of 12 is now it becomes his full-fledged wife because they had relations. But how come then Shimon lived with his wife? He has Mahatayra, a mitzvah to marry Leah. And now after he had a mitzvah to marry Leah, he goes ahead and he marries a sister. In fact, there's a machlekes. If Reuben's wife died and now Shimon can marry her, it's a sister-in-law, he decided, can he marry the Yevama's wife, the Yevama's sister before he goes ahead? The Zika is already there. Can he marry Yevama's sister? If he does, then she's free. And obviously, if you follow this way of thinking, then he can. You can marry the sister of Yevama after she became a Yevama, as long as you didn't marry her yet, just a Zika there. You can marry her, and then as a result of that, she goes away. But it all depends on whether they have relations after she became 12 years old or not. This is so he answered it back. Rav answered, this is the logic. No, it's the bia at the age of 12 that makes it happen. And he holds that even though at that juncture already you had a chiv to marry Reuben's wife, Leah, still you're allowed to marry Leah's sister, Rachel, and now Leah is free. I believe that the Rav was sort of up and dozing and up, and he said that he was only saying half-heartedly. The Tani, who didn't learn a braysa, mekadosh a ketana, if you get engaged with a ketana, kedusha, tului, and the kedusha was sort of hanging in the air. We're not sure how it will turn. What's going to happen when she becomes 12 years old? So we see clearly the reason is it a retrospective, like Rashland? My tului, and what does tului mean? If she hangs around until 12 years old, automatically, not only is she married from 12, but we actually learn she's retrospective, married from the age of 9. I've got lebol, even though they had no relations. So that's the svara. Nothing to do with you allowed to marry the sister of your Yevam. No, that's not what it means. It means Taka, we don't know what's going to happen because at the age of 12, could be they'll continue and they'll have relations that continue on. The Amra, who? Why the Amra? Because we don't know what's going to happen now. The Amra, she says, who Adif Minoi? He is better than me. He can always throw me out of the house. I'm better than him. I'm better than him because I can do me, and he's better than he can throw me out of the house. And we don't know how it's going to develop. Nothing to do with the fact it's we don't know if they'll remain on after 12. But if they do, then it's retrospective. Says the Gemara, but the way Rav answered, the Sava Rav learned ball in Eloi ball. It's not enough that you came 12 years old. They had to have bia. So therefore, it's that bia that made it. It turned it into Kedushim HaTorah. Well, Idma didn't we learn that Ketana Shalemi, a Ketana who at the age of 12 didn't walk out, the Higdila and grew up, the Amda, the Nisas. And what happens? She wasn't a mine. She's 12 years old. She wasn't a mine. She's married to Reuben. She didn't do Mian. But then the Amda, she went up, the Nisas, and she married Shimon, another guy. Rav says, that marriage is worthless because as soon as you hit 12 years old, she became married to Reuben Mahatayra, and any kedusha she accepts from anybody else is worthless. So we see from here, just the mere fact that she became 12 years old, an adult, already makes her married. And no bia. Shmuel says, no, that since there was no bia, you still need a get from second person. My love isn't the argument, the light ball, that there was no bia whatsoever. So Rav holds, nevertheless, it's married. And yes, how come Rav before said, eat ball, only they had relations. And my love, the light ball. No, really the ball. That really they had relations. No, if they had relations, Rav is correct. She's married to Reuben. Why should you need get from the other woman, according to Shmuel? Eat the ball, my time to Shmuel. Because somebody holds because they're living right 3 years together, for example, and they continue having beer. You think for a second the husband thinks, this beer 3 years later we're going to turn it into marriage. He doesn't even think about it. He continues thinking that this is a continuation of his marriage from 9 years old. So therefore nothing happened. So we'll stop over here and continue Mitzvah tomorrow night.